poppin', bae? Purpok here, and welcome back to another episode of Race the Ramen, the show where I attempt to review something unscripted in the amount of time it takes to boil an instant ramen. And today we'll be taking a look at Wolf Children, available now on DVD and Blu-ray. Alright, we're going to start the timer right now. Okay, so, Wolf Children. This is generally agreed upon to be Mamoru Hosoda's best film. This is the fan favorite most people seem to pick out of all of his movies to be the best. And for a long time, it was my favorite movie, just period. Before I encountered Night is Short, Walk on Girl, but that's a different video. But Wolf Children still holds a very special place in my heart and among my favorite films. And I mentioned last time in my review of Summer Wars that it's tied for me in some ways with that film for my personal favorite. And I think that Summer Wars is the overall more fun film, the more crowd-pleasing film that is more easily accessible to a wider array of people. Wolf Children feels like a more personal, intimate kind of film. It feels like the small-scale kind of project that you don't normally see applied to the animated medium, but is absolutely elevated by the fact that it is animated, and wonderfully too. I try not to spend too much time in these reviews talking about animation itself, because it should go without saying in most cases that it looks good, especially with his films. But with all the shots of nature and the improvement in the ways that characters have subtle expressions to reveal tons of depth of emotion behind their actions, it has only improved with each of these efforts, especially considering that this was the first film that Hosoda was doing with Studio Chizu, which was, I believe, his own studio that he started for his own productions. And he was still working with Sadako Okudera, who did the screenplay for Summer Wars, and they worked on this story together, whose themes were more so aimed at parenthood rather than specifically family, which is in a lot of his movies. But I should give a little brief synopsis of the plot, but I'm trying not to spoil anything. This is a heavily plot-driven experience, and even basic things near the start, if you knew them, they could lessen the impact of the experience for you. But basically, you have this woman named Hana, who goes to university and falls in love with a man who turns out to be a wolf man. And then they have 2 wolf children, and she has to raise these children. It's a sort of combination struggles of parenthood versus coming-of-age story, because it becomes more about Hana and these 2 kids. It becomes about how they struggle with this scenario, how they discover who they are as they discover, are they more wolves, are they more people? And it's a movie that never leaves me dry-eyed. There's at least one scene or 2 that wring tears out of me. That's true for a lot of his movies, but it's especially so here, and I wish I could go more into it, but just know it's a wonderfully paced, wonderfully shot, wonderfully animated, emotional movie, and I love it to pieces. Please watch it. Hopefully that gave you a decent impression of what I think of the movie, and I would go into more detail, but just know that this is probably the weirdest premise any of his movies have ever had, but if you can muster through some of that stuff, you see some of the most gentle, kind-hearted sentimentality that he's ever pumped into any of his movies. Some of the most, livable, believable characters. And it's something that, if you really get into it, you might see yourself coming back to it a lot. I've watched it, 6-7 times at this point, and I'll probably be watching it over and over again for a long time going forward, but really, this is the one that you really just need to experience for yourself. It's unfortunate, I wish I could go about it more, but just give it a watch, because I give Wolf Children a straight-up 10 out of 10. In some ways, Summer Wars is better at certain things that it does, like I kind of mentioned, but in just, the individual elements, everything is basically at the height that it can be for this kind of movie. It's a simple story told fantastically, and it really lingers with you. Flies by, and you kind of look at the world a little different by the end, or at least I do. That's Wolf Children. Give it a watch, please. 10 out of 10. Oh, and something I should mention. If this goes up on the day that it's supposed to, uh, if I find the time, this should be going up on Mother's Day in the U.S., and this is sort of a movie about motherhood and parenthood, so I thought I'd just throw this in here. Hey, Mom. Love ya. Thanks for everything.